Kash Patel stepped onto the set of The View with the measured stride of a man who had faced storms and emerged unscathed. His deep blue suit was understated, his tie plain, his demeanor devoid of flash. Yet, there was an unmistakable aura about him, a cold, unshakable confidence that seemed to radiate from his very presence. A former national security advisor, author of the explosive Nunes Memo, and now FBI director, Patel was no stranger to controversy. To his supporters, he was a fearless truth-teller, a man who dared to pull back the curtain on Washington's veiled power structures. To his detractors, he was a smoldering threat, a figure whose loyalty to Donald Trump and radical rhetoric signaled danger to democratic norms. Today, The View was no ordinary talk show. It was a battlefield, meticulously staged for a clash that would reverberate far beyond the studio walls. In the control room, the director's voice was a low hiss. "Let him expose himself!" On stage, the hosts took their positions like seasoned combatants. Whoopi Goldberg, calm but with a glint of steel in her eyes. Joy Behar, her smile sharp as a blade. Sonny Hostin, taut as a bowstring, ready to strike. Anna Navarro, poised and probing. Alyssa Farah Griffin, measured but incisive, her perspective sharpened by her own history in the Trump administration. The studio air was thick with anticipation. The audience didn't clap as Patel entered. They watched, their silence heavy with curiosity and skepticism. No one knew whether they were about to witness an interview or a televised takedown. Patel walked out, his gaze sweeping the room with an unnerving calm. He nodded briefly to the audience, a faint smile flickering across his face, but his eyes were alert, scanning the hosts like a chess player sizing up opponents. A few hesitant claps broke the silence, mingled with murmurs of doubt. This was Trump's guy, after all, sitting at a table known for its liberal leanings. Joy's smirk was barely concealed. Whoopi's weariness was plain. Sonny adjusted her notes, her lawyer's instincts on high alert. They thought they had set the trap. They thought they controlled the narrative. But within minutes, a single, concise sentence from Patel would unravel their strategy. Not with anger, but with a chilling calm that left the hosts scrambling. Whoopi opened the show, her voice warm but pointed. "Welcome to The View. Today's going to be a conversation no one wants to miss. Please give a round of applause for our special guest, FBI Director, former National Security Advisor, and author of Government Gangsters, Mr. Kash Patel." The audience clapped, rhythmic but restrained, the sound laced with probing glances and whispered skepticism. Patel nodded, his faint smile unwavering. "Thank you for having me," he said, his voice low and steady. "I'm ready for a candid conversation." The room seemed to pause, not because of his words, but because of how he delivered them. There was no deference, no trace of the usual guest's humility. Patel hadn't come to play their game. He'd come to rewrite the script. Whoopi pressed on, her tone shifting to one of measured seriousness. "Kash, you've stirred controversy by talking about prosecuting journalists for what you call misinformation in elections. Do you really think putting reporters on trial will solve the problem? Or is this a way to silence dissenting voices?" The question was a calculated opening shot, designed to put Patel on the defensive. The audience leaned forward, their silence expectant. Patel, unfazed, leaned slightly toward the microphone, his eyes locked on Whoopi. Prosecution isn't about silencing voices. It's about protecting the truth. When a media outlet deliberately spreads false information, undermining trust in elections or manipulating voters, that's no longer journalism. It's harm. My role is to ensure the law is enforced, no matter who's involved. Sunny Hostin, ever the lawyer, countered immediately, her voice sharp. But Mr. Patel, who decides what's false? You, as FBI director? That sounds like a step toward controlling the press, and the First Amendment doesn't agree with that. Patel nodded, not dodging the challenge. I agree. The First Amendment is foundational, but it doesn't protect fraud. If a media outlet fabricates evidence to smear someone or cause chaos, that's criminal, not free speech. I'm talking about illegal actions, not opinions or articles someone doesn't like. The audience stirred, a few scattered claps ringing out. Joy Behar, unable to hold back, cut in with a sardonic smile. You talk about the law, but it sounds like you want to turn the FBI into a media patrol, jailing anyone who dares criticize the administration. What kind of justice is that? Patel turned to her, his gaze calm but piercing. Miss Behar, I'm not targeting critics. Criticism is the core of democracy. But when someone uses media power to fabricate, manipulate, or undermine elections, they must be held accountable. Justice doesn't pick sides, and neither do I. The murmurs in the crowd grew louder, some nodding in agreement, others shaking their heads in doubt. Ana Navarro jumped in, her tone pointed. You sound reasonable, but how do we trust you'll be impartial? You're Trump's guy. You worked for Truth Social. Will your FBI go after anti-Trump outlets first? Patel's faint smile returned, not to appease, but to hold his rhythm. Miss Navarro, the FBI isn't my tool or anyone's. Every prosecution decision will be based on evidence, through legal processes, and reviewed by courts. I don't have an enemies list, only the law. Alyssa Farah Griffin, leveraging her own experience in the Trump administration, spoke next, her voice balanced but sharp. Cash, I get your point about accountability, but the phrase prosecuting journalists scares people. Don't you think your rhetoric is hurting trust in the FBI? Patel looked at her, his voice compelling yet measured. I understand that fear, and I don't want to cause panic. But trust in the FBI isn't built by dodging issues. When media is accused of manipulation, we have to ask questions. Genuine journalism, those digging for truth, is a national asset. But those abusing power to deceive aren't. A sudden burst of applause erupted, stronger than expected, startling the producers. The camera panned quickly over the crowd, but the director signaled not to zoom in. Sunny, sensing the audience shifting, pressed harder. You talk about truth, but you once backed ideas like Italy Gate. How do we trust you as a guardian of truth? Patel responded, unruffled. Miss Hostin, I'm not here to debate old allegations. I'm here to talk accountability. If there's evidence a media outlet breaks the law, I'll act. No evidence, no prosecution. Clear and transparent. The applause grew louder, more sustained, with a few audience members standing. A voice from the back shouted, Keep going, Cash! Joy faltered, shuffling her note cards, her eyes darting with unease. Whoopi leaned forward as if to intervene, but the lights and applause made it clear. The audience was tilting toward Patel. He didn't need to seize the moment. He sat calmly, hands resting lightly on the armrests, his gaze scanning the hosts like a strategist awaiting the next move. Alyssa spoke again, her question cutting to the core of Patel's loyalties. Cash, you were a close advisor to President Trump, behind the Nunes memo, and later involved with Truth Social. How can the public trust that, as FBI director, you'll act independently and not just carry out Trump's will? The audience fell silent, the weight of the question hanging in the air. Patel leaned in, his voice low but forceful. Miss Griffin, I don't deny my ties to President Trump, but the FBI isn't a tool for any individual, including him. My job is to protect national security and serve the American people, not a party or a person. Joy, not missing a beat, cut in with sarcasm. Oh, really? You wrote a children's book calling Trump King Donald. That's blind loyalty, not serving the country. You expect us to believe you're impartial? Patel smiled, not to diffuse, but to hold his ground. Miss Behar, the children's book was a fun story, not policy. But if we're talking loyalty, I'm loyal to the Constitution first. I worked with Trump because I believe in his agenda, protecting American interests, fighting corruption. That doesn't make me any less independent. The audience stirred, some clapping, others skeptical. Anna pressed on. But Mr. Patel, you advised Trump Media, a company amplifying Trump's message. How does your FBI not become an extension of Truth Social, targeting political opponents? Patel's gaze was unwavering. Miss Navarro, my past doesn't dictate the FBI's future. I left Trump Media to focus on national security. The FBI operates on evidence and law, not tweets or posts. If a political opponent breaks the law, they'll be investigated, regardless of who they support. Applause erupted, louder than before, with some standing. Sonny, sensing the shift, attacked. You talk a good game, but you once called FBI officials gangsters for investigating Trump. That's not defending the law. That's defending Trump. Will you apologize for those words? Patel took a slight breath, his voice steady. Miss Hostin, I stand by every word. When some FBI officials abuse power to target a presidential candidate without solid evidence, that's misconduct. I'm not defending Trump because he's Trump. I'm defending every American's right to fair treatment under the law. A louder wave of applause broke out, mixed with cheers. The camera captured nodding faces in the crowd. Whoopi, seeing the audience's tilt, tried to regain control. Cash, I hear you on fairness. But don't you think your close ties to Trump make people question your motives? How do you convince Trump's critics that your FBI is neutral? Patel's voice was compelling. Miss Goldberg, I'm not here to make everyone like me. I'm here to do the right thing. Neutrality doesn't mean sitting on the sidelines. It means putting the law above all. If I investigate a case, there's no Trump friend or Trump enemy, only truth and evidence. The applause roared again, with shouts of, "That's right!" Joy, visibly irritated, cut in. But you called Trump's opponents the deep state. You're dividing the country, not uniting it. Patel's tone remained even. Miss Behar, I call the deep state those who abuse power to manipulate the system, no matter who they oppose. Unity doesn't mean agreeing with everyone. It means respecting the truth together. And I won't stop seeking the truth, even if it makes someone uncomfortable. Anna, holding her ground, asked quickly, So you'd investigate Trump if there's evidence of wrongdoing? Or just his opponents? Patel answered instantly. Miss Navarro, if there's evidence, anyone, from the president to a civilian, will be investigated. The law has no exceptions. The hosts whispered tensely, Joy tapping the table, Sonny shaking her head. They thought the Trump loyalty topic would trip Patel, but he turned it into leverage, rallying the audience behind him. Anna pivoted to a new topic, her tone sharp. Mr. Patel, You signed books with the slogan WWWG1WGA, tied to QAnon, and attended events like the Reawaken America Tour, where conspiracy theories are celebrated. How can Americans trust an FBI director linked to such extremist groups? Patel, unshaken, looked at her. Miss Navarro, I don't control how others interpret my actions. WWG1WGA was a phrase I signed at a fan's request, not a political statement. I attend many events to listen to people from all perspectives because that's how you understand issues. My role at the FBI is based on truth and evidence, not rumors or labels. Anna fired back. But you can't play naive, Cash. QAnon is labeled a security threat by the very FBI you run. You show up at those places, sign those phrases, you're enabling extremism. Do you see yourself as wrong? Patel's slight smile returned. Miss Navarro, I don't enable any group. As a lawyer, I know the value of dialogue, even with those I disagree with. If I avoid them, how do I understand what's driving people? My FBI will investigate any threat, including QAnon, if there's evidence. Sonny cut in. You talk about evidence, but you once backed Italygate, a conspiracy theory about the 2020 election. As FBI director, how do you justify being linked to ideas your own agency has debunked? Patel's gaze was unflinching. Miss Hostin, I never endorsed Italygate or any conspiracy theory. I asked questions, like any lawyer would, when there's suspicious information. But at the FBI, we don't chase theories. We chase facts. If there's no evidence, I don't pursue it. Applause erupted, with a few cheers. Joy interrupted, her sarcasm biting. You sound good, but showing up at those places was a choice. You chose to stand with people who call the FBI the enemy, and now you're leading it. That's hypocrisy, Cash. Patel turned to her. Miss Bihar, I don't pick sides to please anyone. I choose dialogue to understand issues. If the FBI wants to protect people, we need to know what they think, even if it's hard to hear. I'm not here to be liked. I'm here to do what's right. Alyssa tried to keep her tone balanced. Cash, I get that you want to listen, but any connection to QAnon, even indirect, erodes trust in the FBI. What will you do to prove you're not influenced by those groups? Patel's voice was resonant. Miss Griffin, trust doesn't come from slogans, but from actions. Under my leadership, the FBI will investigate every threat from any group based on evidence, not feelings, not speculation. My only loyalty is to the law and the American people. The room ignited. Applause thundered, many leaping from their seats. A voice shouted, "Nailed it, Cash!" Whoopi leaned forward, trying to regain control. You talk about the law, but don't you think your past ties or statements close to groups like QAnon make people worry the FBI is being pulled into politics? Patel's voice was sharp as steel. Miss Goldberg, politicization happens when we let emotions override truth. I'm not here to pick sides. I'm here to protect the country. And if that means listening to all sides, even those seen as fringe, I'll do it. National security doesn't care about flags, slogans, or parties. It demands truth. The audience exploded, the applause nearly drowning out the production team's earpieces. Sonny jumped in, her voice urgent. So, if QAnon is truly a threat, would you investigate them fully? Can you be objective? Patel answered immediately, his words cold and firm. If QAnon or any group breaks the law, they'll be investigated. No safe zones, no bias, no exemptions. That's my commitment, not to any politician, but to every American citizen. The applause roared, nearly half the audience standing, some raising their hands in heart shapes. In the control room, a producer signaled, "Cut! Cut it!" But the director stared at the screen, frozen. The studio was ablaze, and Kash Patel was at its center. Sunny seized the moment, her voice laced with challenge. "Mr. Patel, you just said you'll be unbiased, that you act for the people. But let's talk about your actions. You once called for shutting down the FBI headquarters and purging the agency of what you called the deep state. Is that the plan of an FBI director trying to reform, or just payback for those who investigated Trump and his allies?" The question was a direct assault, the room falling silent with tension. Patel leaned toward the microphone, his voice landing like a stone. "Miss Houston, reforming the FBI isn't about payback. It's a duty. When an agency with the nation's greatest power is accused of using that power for partisan gain, failing to act is negligence. Closing the headquarters isn't about destroying the FBI. It's a symbol to declare that the era of cover-ups, favoritism, and abuse is over. You can't renew an institution by preserving a rotten framework." A long silence followed. Then firm applause broke out, each clap like a nail driven into the studio air. Sunny fired back. "A symbol? Sounds like you want to gut the FBI more than reform it. Purging the deep state means firing anyone who doesn't align with Trump, right?" Patel's gaze was unwavering. "Miss Houston, the deep state isn't a list of names. It's a system of people abusing power to manipulate. Reform means ensuring every FBI employee works for the people, not politics. Firings only with evidence of misconduct. Otherwise, I need them to rebuild trust." Joy jumped in, her tone biting. "You talk about trust, but you called FBI officials gangsters just for doing their jobs. You undermine the agency you lead and call it reform." Patel turned to her, his voice calm. "Miss Bihar, I call misconduct what it is, no matter who's behind it. If an FBI official uses power to target anyone, Trump or any citizen, without basis, that's a problem. Reform is about protecting the FBI from those actions, not undermining it." Applause erupted, some standing, cheering. Anna followed. "But Mr. Patel, closing the FBI headquarters, a symbol of law enforcement, is extreme. Doesn't that erode trust in the agency more than build it?" Patel's eyes fixed on her. "Miss Navarro, sometimes you have to tear down outdated symbols to build something better. That headquarters bears J. Edgar Hoover's name, a man who abused power for decades. Moving the FBI out says we put the people above the past. Trust doesn't come from a building. It comes from actions." Alyssa leaned in, her voice soft but sharp. "Kash, I understand your drive for change, but such sweeping reforms can't be forced. They need consensus. What will you do to convince those who think you're turning the FBI into a political tool?" Patel's voice was heavy, each word deliberate. "Miss Griffin, I don't seek consensus by pleasing everyone. I build it through transparency. Every reform under me will be clearly explained, based on evidence, and subject to independent oversight. If people see the FBI putting law above politics, they'll trust it, whether they like me or not." Applause lingered, some shouting, "Keep going, Kash!" Whoopi, sensing the balance shifting, cut in. "Mr. Patel, you talk about transparency, but you've accused the FBI of bias in the past. How do we know your reform plans aren't a vendetta dressed as justice?" Patel's gaze was resolute. "Miss Goldberg, I don't play politics with grudges. Vendettas have no place in my playbook. I want an FBI that serves all Americans, even those who oppose me. If I pursue anyone, there'll be evidence, presented in court, not prejudice, not emotion. The room erupted, applause and whistles filling the air. Someone shouted, "You're doing the right thing, Cash." Sonny, seeing the narrative slip, jumped in. "If that's the case, how will you handle FBI employees who resist your reforms? Fire them to keep control?" Patel answered immediately. "I don't need employees to agree with me. I need them to do right. If they resist but work with integrity and follow the law, they're valuable. But if they break the law, hide the truth, or use their position for personal gain, they're gone. That's not control. That's justice." The studio erupted in a wave of standing ovations, shouts calling his name. The producer signaled to cut, but the director stayed silent. Sonny, determined, struck again. "Mr. Patel, we've heard you talk about prosecuting media, loyalty to Trump, QAnon ties, and FBI reform. But it all leads to one question. How can Americans trust you're not Trump's enforcer, turning the FBI into a political weapon to target opponents?" Patel leaned in, his voice resonant like a proclamation. "Miss Hostin, when media and officials crown themselves arbiters of justice, they steal the people's voice." The words hit like thunder, the audience exploding in applause, many standing, one shouting, "Speak, Cash!" Patel continued, undeterred. "I'm not here to serve Trump or anyone. I'm here to protect every American's right to live in a country where truth isn't manipulated. Want justice? Start by listening, not condemning." Whoopi tried to cut in. "Cash, you talk about listening, but your actions, reforming the FBI, threatening media, sound like control, not protection. Don't you see that?" Patel faced her directly. "Miss Goldberg, control is when people are forced to stay silent. I want them to speak, as long as they speak truth. Under my leadership, the FBI won't chase anyone for their views. We follow illegal actions. That's the difference, and it's crystal clear." Applause surged. Joy jumped in, angry. "You sound so noble, but you called Trump's opponents enemies. That's not unity. That's divisive rhetoric." Patel was unfazed. "Miss Bahar, enemies aren't those who disagree. Enemies are those who abuse power to distort truth and erode public trust. I'm not dividing. I'm calling things what they are. If the truth makes someone uncomfortable, that's their problem, not mine." The room ignited, shouts and applause rising. Anna tried to shift the tide. "Mr. Patel, you say you pursue truth, but you've spread conspiracies, from Italygate to deep state talk. How can the public trust your FBI won't keep pushing those?" Patel's words struck like a hammer. "Miss Navarro, my FBI won't chase rumors. We chase evidence. I ask questions because that's a lawyer's job. But as FBI leader, there's one rule: truth, and truth doesn't need embellishment." The audience responded with raucous applause, many standing, hands raised high. Alyssa tried to reclaim space. "Cash, I believe you pursue truth, but your words, purge, prosecute, make people fear you're targeting anyone not in Trump's camp. What will you do to ease that fear?" Patel nodded slightly. "I'm not here to reassure everyone. I'm here to do right. Every reform decision will be public. Every investigation based on evidence, all under public scrutiny. Anyone thinking I'm targeting them for politics, look at the record. It'll speak the truth for me." The applause was thunderous, nearly the entire audience standing, whistling, shouting, "Cash! Cash!" Sonny threw a final blow. "So, do you admit that your approach, from QAnon to FBI reform, has helped erode trust in the agency?" Patel's response was sharp, honed by reason. Miss Hostin, trust doesn't crumble from questions. It crumbles from hidden lies. I don't divide. I confront the truth. And if the truth makes someone uncomfortable, they should ask themselves, are they afraid of the truth or of losing power? The studio erupted, the audience roaring, clapping, calling his name. At the host's table, the panel's faces had changed. No longer aggressors, but people struggling to hold their narrative. Whoopi smoothed her hair, Sunny bit her lip, Joy tossed her notes on the table, while Anna and Alyssa whispered tensely. They thought Sunny's final question would topple Patel, but he turned it into a crescendo, with the audience behind him. Patel's words were a flame, searing into the audience's minds. They didn't clap because they fully agreed. They clapped for the sincerity, for someone daring to face a hostile room and say what they felt, but didn't voice. Patel sat calmly, no victorious expression, just a steady gaze, as if he'd done what needed doing. The producer signaled to wrap, but the audience kept clapping, unwilling to leave. Whoopi took a deep breath, flashing a slight smile. We want to thank Mr. Kash Patel for joining us today. It seems we've had a conversation beyond expectations. Joy gave a slight nod, no longer smirking. Sunny leaned back, her gaze quiet. Anna and Alyssa stayed silent, offering only nods, acknowledging this was no ordinary exchange. Patel stood, nodding his thanks. His silence in a room filled with noise carried more weight than words. The applause rose again, a closure no one on The View's team anticipated or could control. As the cameras pulled back, the show's theme music played, and text appeared. The View will return next week. But one line echoed in the audience's hearts, both in the studio and beyond. If the truth makes someone uncomfortable, they should ask themselves, are they afraid of the truth or of losing power? Supporter or critic, no one doubted. Patel hadn't come for an interview. He'd come to change the game. The studio quieted, but the energy lingered, a reminder that one person with sincerity and courage could shift the narrative. Patel's line, when media and officials crown themselves arbiters of justice, they steal the people's voice, didn't just shake the studio, it exploded outward, seeping through screens and social media. Within hours, the Kash on The View trended, clips of Patel's pivotal moments racking up millions of views. One user wrote, I don't support Trump, but Patel's right. The media can't play God with justice. Another countered, he's a danger, masking ambition with fancy words. Divisive, yet magnetic, Patel's moment sparked fierce debate. Online forums buzzed. Supporters hailed him as a warrior confronting a biased media machine. Critics warned of the FBI's politicization, but admitted Patel had turned The View into his stage, making the hosts reluctant spectators. The press dissected every second, from Patel's calm gaze to Joy's unease. Headlines screamed, Patel turns The View into a battlefield, and FBI director shocks with dangerous message. All agreed. Patel's words ignited a broader debate about media's role, officials' power, and the people's voice. The View's official account posted a brief statement. Thank you to Kash Patel for a lively discussion, but it was drowned in thousands of comments, from supporters to critics slamming the hosts for losing control. An insider revealed Joy left the studio irritated, muttering, he was too slick. Sunny declined interviews, while Whoopi admitted, we underestimated him. Patel, in contrast, chose silence. No interviews, no posts. That silence amplified his message, a reminder that one person with courage could challenge a system. In a world drowned in noise, Patel said little, said it right, and let the truth find its way. His words didn't resolve every debate, but opened a door for dialogue, questioning, and belief that the people's voice mattered. As the studio lights dimmed, Patel's story shone, not because he was flawless, but because he dared to stand, face a hostile room, and say what many felt but didn't voice. One sincere statement had shaken a nation. The story of Kash Patel on The View reflects the polarization and distrust in media and institutions in America today. In a political landscape where debates over free speech, the FBI's role, and media influence rage, this moment captures an individual winning support through sincerity and sharp reasoning despite attacks. The audience's cheers, the host's discomfort, and the viral spread of the Kash on The View show the power of speaking truth clearly under hostility. Patel's silence post-show, letting his words spread, underscores that actions resonate louder than words. The lesson: in a divided society where media and platforms shape thought, speak with sincerity, respect truth, and don't fear criticism. Take inspiration from Patel, daring to face accusations, as when he countered QAnon claims by emphasizing dialogue. Don't let fear of labels stop you from questioning, as the audience did when they clapped. Act like Patel post-show. Let your words and deeds prove their worth, rather than arguing endlessly. Engage in honest dialogue, listen to opposing views, and stand for what you believe, even if alone.